Before the universe had a heartbeat, God already had a plan for you. Stay with me, because the story you're about to hear is not just ancient history, is the beginning of your story, your identity, your purpose, and your hope. Before the first second ever existed, before stars were born, before galaxies spun into motion, there was only God. The Spirit hovered over the deep, a silent, endless, formless void. Darkness stretched out like a vast ocean. Then God spoke, with a single word. Let there be light. Light exploded into existence, stretching, filling the emptiness. And God separated light from darkness, day from night. The first rhythm of time began. God spoke again. Let dry ground appear. Mountains rose. Oceans carved their pathways. Rivers danced through valleys. Earth took its form like a masterpiece being revealed. Then God said, let the land produce vegetation, and green burst forth forests, fields, flowers, fruit life, overflowing with color. And God saw that it was good. On the fourth day, God set rulers in the heavens, the sun blazing with warmth, the moon gentle and steady, the stars countless, whispering the glory of their Maker, each one placed with precision, each one called by name. God filled the waters with creatures, from massive whales gliding through the deep to tiny fish shimmering like jewels. Then he filled the sky with birds, wings stretching wide, soaring across the horizon, and God blessed them. On the sixth day, the land came alive. Lions roared, elephants marched, deer leaped, insects crawled. Life pulsed across every corner of the earth. But creation was not complete. God saved his most precious creation for last. God said, let us make mankind in our image, not from a word spoken into the void, but from his own hands. He formed a man from the dust and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. Adam opened his eyes, and the first thing he ever saw was God. Then God created Eva, companion, equal and precious, crafted with care, beauty, and purpose. God placed them in Eden, a garden overflowing with life, peace, and joy. Humanity and God walking together. Perfect harmony. God gave them everything. Every tree, every fruit, every blessing, except one. Do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, not because God wanted to restrict them, but because love requires choice. A serpent entered the garden, twisting truth, whispering lies. Did God really say, surely you won't die? You'll become like God. Eve looked at the fruit pleasing, beautiful, desirable. She ate, Adam ate, and in a moment, something broke. Innocence shattered, shame entered, fear replaced peace. They hid from the very one who made them. God called Adam, where are you? Not because he didn't know, because he wanted them to come home. Sin had entered the world, but even in judgment, God's heart poured out mercy. He clothed them, he protected them, he promised redemption, right there in the middle of humanity's fall. God gave the first prophecy of hope. A son will come. He will crush the serpent's head, and he will restore everything that was lost. The story that began in Genesis was already pointing to Jesus. From the very beginning, God's plan was restoration, redemption, relationship. The same God who formed the stars formed you with intention and purpose, and the story is still unfolding. If this story moved you, don't scroll away. This is the beginning of the greatest journey ever written, and it includes you. Follow for part 2, where we continue the story that leads straight to the cross and to your new beginning. Adam and Eve stepped into a world that felt colder, quieter, heavier. The vibrant life of Eden was now a memory, replaced by the toil of survival. But even outside the garden, God's presence did not abandon them. Eve gave birth to 2 sons: Cain, the firstborn, a tiller of the soil, and Abel, the younger, a shepherd with a tender heart. In time, both brothers brought offerings to God. Cain presented the fruit of the ground, while Abel brought the best of his flock. God looked with favor on Abel and his gift, not because of what he offered, but because of the heart behind it, a heart of sincere worship. Cain burned with jealousy. Anger twisted his mind until a deep darkness overcame him. God saw the storm brewing in his heart and warned him, "Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." But Cain didn't listen. Out in a lonely field, where no one else could see, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and struck him down. The ground, meant for planting and life, soaked up the first innocent blood. God's voice thundered through the silence. "Where is your brother, Abel?" Cain's defiant answer still echoes through history. "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And yet, even in judgment, God showed mercy. He placed a mark on Cain, not to curse him further, but to protect him from being killed in his wanderings. A sign of grace in the aftermath of humanity's first murder. Time passed. To fill the void left by Abel, God gave Adam and Eve another son, Seth, and through Seth's line, a glimmer of hope returned. People began to call on the name of the Lord again. Generation followed generation. The world filled with people, but as humanity grew, its heart drifted darker and darker. Violence spread like a disease. Wickedness grew without restraint. God looked upon the earth and saw that every intention of the human heart was only evil, all the time. His heart was filled with pain. But among the suffocating darkness, one man stood out. Noah, a righteous man, blameless in his generation. A man who still listened when God whispered, and God revealed a plan that would reshape the entire world. "I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Build yourself an ark, a vessel of impossible size, constructed on dry land." Noah began to build, following God's precise instructions. He built not by sight, but by faith. People laughed. They mocked him. They called him a fool, building a ship under clear skies, far from any sea. But Noah obeyed. When the ark was finished, God brought the animals, 2 by 2, from every species. And Noah, with his wife, his sons, and their wives, entered the safety of the ark. God himself shut the door behind them. Then, the first drop fell. Raindrops turned to sheets. Sheets turned to roaring torrents. The fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. The world that had once rejected God was now swallowed by the waters. For 40 days and 40 nights, the flood rose, covering the highest mountains. Everything that had the breath of life in its nostrils on dry land died. But inside the ark, there was safety, there was promise, there was a future. At last, after months upon the water, the rain stopped. The waters slowly receded. Noah opened the window of the ark and sent out a dove. It returned, finding no place to rest. 7 days later, he sent it out again. This time, it returned in the evening with a freshly plucked olive leaf in its beak, a sign of hope, a sign of peace, a sign that new life was beginning again. When Noah and his family finally stepped onto the dry earth, the first thing he did was build an altar. Not a monument to his survival, but an offering of gratitude to the God who saved him. And God was pleased. He made a covenant, a sacred promise to all creation. "Never again will I destroy the earth with a flood." And as a sign of this unbreakable promise, he set a rainbow in the clouds, the first symbol of God's faithfulness, a vibrant arc of hope against the storm. Generations grew once more. People multiplied and spread across the land. But instead of honoring God, they began to pursue greatness for themselves. Gathering on a plain in a land called Shinar, they said to each other, "Come, let us build ourselves a city, with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves." Their pride and ambition rose upward with every brick of their tower. God saw their unity was rooted not in worship, but in arrogance. So he came down and confused their language. Words that once unified them became scattered sounds. They could no longer understand one another. Unable to work together, they abandoned their tower and scattered across the face of the earth, just as God had intended. Humanity was divided by language and nation, but God's plan for redemption was still moving forward. Even as the nations scattered, God was already preparing the next chapter. His eyes were set on a man named Abram, living in a distant land, man through whom every nation on earth would one day be blessed. The story was far from over. It was only setting the stage for the greatest promise yet to come. If this journey through Genesis stirred your heart, don't stop here. The next chapter reveals the rise of a man whose faith changed the world, and whose story leads us one step closer to Jesus. Tap like, subscribe, and follow this series as we bring the entire Bible to life, one chapter at a time.